In the House, or actually on the C-Spire Channel 70 and television at SuperTalk TV, it's Jeremy England, Senator from District 51. Good morning, and Happy New Year to you, sir. I was going to say Merry Christmas. That's over, so How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Paul. Look, we can still say Merry Christmas. It was a good Christmas, and Happy New Year to you as well.
You know, on one of your platforms, you had something about how squirrely things are in this way. It's a bizarre world out there, and I know this has nothing to do with what I want to talk about. But I read the posting that you had, and we're just so out of kilter. You got to wonder what's going to swing us back in to normalcy.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd world we live in, Paul. And look, parents these days have a tough job ahead of them raising kids in a world where the media and different television. I mean, you can't even trust just a cartoon on TV anymore to not throw some things at your kids that they're not ready for. And I want my children to enjoy their innocence as long as they can, and to grow up in a way that's going to be healthy and make them happy. And it's a tough job when the world seems to be against you anyways.
Yeah, if you look from my generation to your generation, and a lot of people in your generation can't even assimilate this in the brain as it really happened, but it was this fast because when we were growing up, the sitcoms were all based on some morality to leave a child, why not to steal, why not to bully, whether it's Opie or one of the family shows, My Three Sons or something like that. And all of the movie stars were patriotic because they just come back from either Korea or World War II. And many of them were heroes. So that's a pretty big change.
Yeah, well, you had strong parental figures in those shows and even in the movies. And now you see parents on these Disney shows and on other shows, and the parents are like bumbling idiots. They're just there for comic relief, and the kids make fun of their parents more than anything else. And it's not the way things ought to be.
Well, and we've been dealing with that for a long time. Not so much the parents, but certainly the man of the house is just an idiot. How he even made it in the door, we have no idea. If he didn't have some help from the kids or the wife, the man would be just lost somewhere in the backyard twiddling his thumbs. But that's just the way it is, and hopefully it'll turn around in the future. Let me ask you this. There's a lot of things to be done. We look at the 2024 session, and by the time everybody gets their legs from that extra month and gets to cranking, there are some pretty good topics out there we need to talk about. In no particular order, let's talk about some of the hot-button issues, and that's number one. Is the hospital issue going to be still there, or is everybody pretty calmed down on that one, since it looks like CMS is going to accept the proposal from the governor?
Yeah, look, CMS accepting that proposal was huge. That's going to allow hospitals to get money that they didn't otherwise have, and we don't have to expand Medicaid to do that, and that's very important. But yeah, look, the hospital issue is still going to be there, and it's not really a whether we expand Medicaid or not issue. That I'm not in favor of expanding Medicaid. I think that opens up too many doors that we're not ready for. But the hospital issue is an economic model issue. It's an issue where they've got to hospitals have to look at the way that they are providing their services differently now, and the way that insurance is playing a role in that. You don't go in the hospital for a week stay for a knee replacement anymore. You're in and you're out. So that affects the bottom line revenue for the hospital. So we've got to, and look, my hospitals down here have been looking at that. And I think they're ahead of a lot of others in the state, and I'm really proud of them. But that's an economic model issue that any way we can help, we're happy to, but I think that we've got to figure out a better way to deliver those services.
Do we know how fast that money's going to get into them, or they can get some relief with that money in there, or is it a long-term process?
Look, I don't know the answer to that, but I'll tell you, CMS sometimes takes their time on some things, so I wouldn't expect it to be too fast. But I know that that Drew Snyder in the Medicaid office and in other areas of the state, I know we're going to be looking at that and moving it as quickly as we can.
I think the other thing the legislature is going to look at, if all of a sudden we get down toward the end of the legislative session, or in the some gray hairs on this year get toward the end of the fiscal year on June 30th, and all of a sudden the hospitals are saying this didn't help, then I think a lot of legislators are going to ask, what would help? How much money do you need? And would that be enough if we gave it? So sometimes down the road, this is going to answer a couple of questions. You're just going to have to either shut down or retool.
That's right. Yeah, and look, it's not what we want to hear. We want to make sure that everybody is provided care where they can get it. But, the government can only do so much. And unfortunately, it's a slow moving process. But I do think this is going to look, we're going to be pushing this as quickly as we can. And just like last year, we tried to put money in the system. Now we had some loopholes we've got to go back and fix. But, we're going to help any way we can. And we're going to listen to, every one of our hospital administrators that want to come talk to us about that.
We've had the lieutenant governor on. I think he's scheduled in the next several days or a couple of weeks. But, he said on the air he's not in favor of Medicaid expansion as is. Then there's some talk in the Senate, more so than in the House, some version of that, at least let's take a look at. Do you think that's going to change with a new speaker in the Senate?
Paul, I don't think it'll change.
I'm sorry,
new
speaker in the House.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I don't think it was changed. And look, I'm proud of Jason White, presumed new speaker. I think he's going to do a great job over there. And what I like that he said is that we're going to have conversations, and we always need to have conversations about things. Competition of ideas is where we come up with our best solutions. And so I think we need to be talking about it. I don't know that it'll change from a support Medicaid expansion versus not support it, but we need to see what other options are out there and be having the conversation. I'm glad that we're going to be doing that.
Yeah. Ocean, I want to mention this one because in your part of the country, Ocean Springs got an award in the last several days. The only Mississippi city listed on the World Atlas's list of 9 towns across the entire South that are ideal for seniors. We Ocean Springs, Madison, places in DeSoto County, Laurel. We have so many of these places now that are just absolutely beautiful places to not only retire, but to raise a family. And they never get a lot of spotlight on a national basis when you see the word Mississippi with it. But, geez, with all of the people moving out of places like New York and California, I just mentioned something a few moments ago. In the last year, 500,000 people have moved to Texas. And if we got the right kind of census data that we should have, we would have found out we probably gained about 100,000 instead of losing 5,000 or 6,000. And I'm not sure if that was ever corrected or not. But that leads me into the personal income tax. What are we going to do? What type of how much attention is this topic going to get in the Senate?
Well, look, it's going to get attention. Anytime we're not going up there and talking about how we can cut the people's taxes, we're not doing our job, in my opinion. So, again, we're going to have the conversation. But I think what we did this last time, this last term with the income tax cut, I think was the way to do it. I think we need to look at taking small bites of the apple at a time to make sure we're not leaving our state in a revenue deficit situation where we have to come back and raise taxes, which none of us want to do and hopefully we'll never have to do. But we're going to have the conversation. And look, what we're coming out of this COVID time where everybody had federal money in their pockets. We had different money put in that we don't normally have. Every state in the nation was flush with cash and with new revenue that was coming from whether it be their sales tax or directly from the federal government. And that's going to go away. So we've got to be very careful how we start pulling strings on our revenue system in our state because we don't want to leave ourselves in a situation where we can't provide our core functions of the government, education, infrastructure upgrades, safety with our first responders and health care, all of these different things. We don't want to put ourselves in a bind there, but chipping away at the taxes slowly and figuring out how we can afford to do that. I think that's the fiscally responsible way to handle that. And I think you'll hear us talking about that more, especially over in the Senate.
Have you gone over any of the numbers? The November numbers are also up, or is that trend changing your mind on that one, or you think, okay, we're on the right track?
Well, look, Paul, I think we're on the right track. I definitely think we're on the right track. And I know there's been some discussion about, the state economist numbers versus what we're expecting. And as a conservative, look, I kind of look at it the way I do at home. We try to budget on a very conservative level. And if we have extra money at the end, that's awesome. We can go back and look at it and revamp later on if we need to. But I think that's the way that I'm hoping that all of us can look at the numbers statewide. Let's take a conservative approach and make sure that we're on good footing before we move into anything drastic.
And then the question is going to be, how many more months are we going to have to show a surplus like this before we should have pulled the trigger and lowered it again? And the other equation, and I'm not sure how these, think tank does this as far as the folks at that level of the economist, how much of the money that is going back into the wallets of the people of this state in personal income tax and then is spent on the marketplace is generating more taxes and how that levels out. It's a heck of an equation, but one at that level they track all the time. So we'll talk more. PERS coming up next. Jeremy England, senator from District 51. I was just reading this. It's recorded by the New York City-based financial media website. Medium home value in Ocean Springs is an attractive $184,800, $60,000 less than the national average. But the World Atlas says described Ocean Springs as a mature, friendly, and welcoming community. Highlighted Ocean Springs' affordability compared to the national figures, and they were 9 in the top 9, which included Naples, Florida, Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I've never heard of Blowing Rock, North Carolina. I would think insurance is going to be higher there, yeah. St. Augustine, Florida, Eureka Springs, Florida, Port Richey, Florida, and there was one other in there. So kudos to our hometown of Ocean Springs, our SuperTalk hometown. Let's talk about PERS, Jeremy, and what are we going to do about that one? Because it's just one of those things we keep looking at, but we never solve the situation because it's not an easy answer.
It's not, Paul. And look, PERS is one of those issues that keeps me up at night. I know it keeps a lot of my fellow legislators up thinking about it and try to figure how we're going to address this issue. What we've got with PERS is a can that's been kicked so far down the road. We just can't kick it any further. We're going to have to start looking at how we can fix that system, and we're going to have to try to do it in a way that we don't remove benefits from people that worked their entire lives and earned these retirement benefits and expect them, and they're living on fixed income. So we've got to be conscious of that. But the system we have is not going to be able to function long term. It's not going to be able to fund itself. We've got a situation where we've got a good conservative Republican government in place in Mississippi where we want to shrink the government. And then you've got PERS that relies on having as many employees as you can paying into a system, meaning you need as many state employees paying into the system. So that kind of works against each other. And look, I think we're going to have to, at some point, just put a wedge or a stop on the timeline of PERS to allow the benefits we have now up to a certain point, and then we're going to have to do something completely different moving forward. It's going to be a tough problem, and there are going to be a lot of talks on it. I'm ready to have them. We've got to get in and jump into this head first now.
Have you seen any solutions out there that you like? I know they're tough, but we've talked to some people who said that this is what you've got to do if you want to. It's not easy as a politician doing it. And I also wonder if you just stop the 13th check, not for the people who are getting it now. I understand that causes people to grimace. But if you're a new employee coming into the system and work for the government, let's say June 30th of 2024, and you get all of your benefits, but not the 13th check, is that enough money to be put in the till to help at all?
Paul, it's a good start. And look, people don't just grimace; they get on their computer and send nasty emails if you talk about getting rid of that 13th check.
I preface that. No, everybody who's getting 13th check now, fine. I'm just saying, new people coming in, at least they'll know this. If you're going to work for the government, here's the benefits, and they're still good with all of the insurance and everything else. But that 13th check will not be there.
Yeah,
you will get a cost of
like
living.
I said, it'd be a good. Yeah, it's not tied to anything though, Paul, and that's the thing. It's not tied to inflation or other things that typically cost of living is tied to. I think it's just a 3% increase or adjustment. look, that's not even going to be enough. If we stop the 13th check right now, all the way across the board, that wouldn't fix the PERS problem that we have. Now, there, like you said, there are a lot of solutions, a lot of things. Talk about Gerard Gibbert from SuperTalk. I know he's got a great article out there with some good ideas and addresses the problem well. And look, we're going to have hearings on this. Finance Committee, Senator Josh Harkins, presuming coming back as chairman of Finance. We're going to have a lot of good talks. He's a great guy, and I think that Josh will have hearings for us. We'll have the best and the brightest in to talk to us about possible solutions, and we're going to be looking into it.
Well, the other thing too, and I think Gerard's been on with me to talk about this, and he's talked about it ad nauseum and some very, very good points. But I think some of his points of this, it's not one thing; it's got to be a multitude of different solutions. Yeah,
that's right.
Because any one thing is not going to do it.
Yeah, one thing is not going to fix this problem.
What do we do as far as the initiative process? Are we going to get something passed this time?
I hope so. Look, I'm going to be jumping in and looking at that as well. Look, it's a constitutional right that the people of Mississippi have to petition or to file a ballot initiative with the government and try to get things on the books. Now, we're going to have to do it a little differently. I don't like the idea of these initiatives and this language going straight into our state constitution. We're going to have to make sure that it's a process that's attainable, getting these petitions filed, but not something that's super easy.
Let me say this because we're running out of time here, but let's use your. You could do a little lesson on the perfect Zoom sound quality and everything. Great. It's almost like having you in the studio. We appreciate it, man. Look forward to get you in the studio when the session goes. For the rest of the holiday season, a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, sir, and the family.
Thank you very much, Paul. Happy New Year to everyone.
You got it. News is coming.